Alright, so we started the process of using the function that we have in our function library for fetching or reading the data. So now we're trying to call that function, and the first value that we need to pass is the sheet path, the file path, right? So the second thing that we have to pass is the sheet name, right? So let's get the sheet name. Let's make sure. So the sheet name, this sheet, is this mortgage calculator, right? This is the sheet name. So I pass the sheet name, which is mortgage calculator. And what is the next thing that we have to pass? So in QTP is already giving us some advice that after the sheet name, the next thing that we have to pass is and this comes up automatically, by the way, if you have this function library added. So this advice is automatically telling you that the function that we're trying to call has these parameters: the file path, the sheet name, and the next thing is the column name. So which column that we entered are we trying to read? So this is the column that we're trying to read, right? Loan amount. We're trying to read this value. So the column name is a loan amount. So pass the column name, which is within a quotation. So the column name is loan underscore amount. Okay. And the last thing that we pass, as we can see in the function, is the line count. So we have to tell QTP how many lines to count. So the function is trying to read all of the data. So let's say you have hundreds of data, but you don't need all hundreds of data. So you just need 10 or 15, maybe 20. So you don't need to read everything. So in this case, the benefit of using this function is that you can tell, or you can pass the value for reading a specific or a certain amount of lines. So you can tell QTP how many lines to read. So if you read 3 lines, so in this case we have 3 lines, if you read 3 lines, then you can use any of these values within your script. For example, if you read 2 lines and you try to use row number 3, well then QTP won't understand that because QTP did not read that line. So in this case, we can specify how many lines we want QTP to read. So let's read all 3 lines. Let's save it. I'll see read 3 lines. Okay? Now, we met all the requirements for calling our function. This is our function. Now, how do we know if this is working? So let's try to use a simple print statement. So let's try to print all of the values from our Excel sheet. And before we do that, we can't directly print the function, so we can read it, but we can't directly print the function. So here we have to put this function into a variable. Put the return value of this function, we have to put that into a variable. So let's put the column that we are reading is the loan amount column. So let's name this variable as loan amount. So I'll say loan amount variable is equal to this function. So this makes this a true function because functions return value. Okay? Functions return value. So in this case, this variable is returning the value of this function. Okay? So if we assign this into a variable, we have to have these parameters within a bracket. So the parameters of the function, the file name, the sheet path, all of this needs to be in a bracket. So just have a bracket at the end and at the beginning of the parameters, okay? Not before the name of the function, after that. Now, if I try to print these variables, this variable, I'll copy this variable, and I'm telling QTP to print it. I want to know what did it read from this Excel sheet, okay? So in this case, if we try to run this, I have a breakpoint here, so it'll just execute these two lines here. So if I run this, I expect an error actually. So as we can see, it's a mismatch error. So QTP does not actually understand what this variable is because the fetching data, the read data function, is reading like 3 lines. It is reading 3 lines from the loan amount column, right? But when we are trying to print this variable, this is the benefit of using this type of function, the reading data, because we can now specify which row number of this column, which line number we are trying to print. So which one are we trying to use? And that's the one that we'll print. QTP does not understand that, so we need to specify which one we want. So we understand that it reads 3 lines, but when we use this value, we need to specify line number what. So which loan number you want to print. So I'll say, well, let's go back. So for your understanding, this is the 300,000 that I'm trying to print, right? So this is a line number 1, 2, so line number 2, let's close this. So I'll say print loan amount, and within a bracket I can say 2, number 2. So it should be printing line number 2, which is 300,000. So let's try to run this and see if it works. Yep, alright, it printed something, let's open it, and it printed 300,000. So this is how you can, in the previous videos we actually read all of the data, all of the rows and all of the lines within a column. So in this case we just learned how to just read a specific column and a specific line or a specific row, within a column. So this is how you read from read Excel in QTP VB script.